Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of URC Unloaded. We have John Barclay as always. We're going to review some of the games, but we're missing somebody. We're missing Mr. Tom Shanklin. JB, any idea where he's gone, where he's off to? I know he was on holiday, but he was supposed to give us a shout back. We haven't heard too much from him, have we?
Well, you reckon he's been arrested somewhere and he's told us he can't make it. Do you know what I love? We've got a WhatsApp group and I missed one or two shows, and the amount of crap I got, and I'm sat here round 6 and I'm the only one who's not missed a game. So I'm sure that'll change, but I am personally delighted that he is not here.
Hold on a second. Hold on. How many did you miss last year? You have to
I
build
think
up
one.
brownie points again. Mate, you're
It's
going to be
one.
off to Singapore with a family. You'll be in Bali next summer. You'll be in skiing in France in a couple of months' time.
Like you're like this. I just booked the holiday to Mauritius next year.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Hey, you've got to enjoy it.
Big time. Well, Shanks is unavailable. Apparently, he is in Dubai. He isn't arrested. I do think he is safe. So hopefully he gets home next week and we can catch back up with him. But we've got an interesting guest on today. Obviously, with everything that's happened with Munster Rugby over the last 24, 48 hours, I'm delighted to say that we have Simon Lewis with us, who's a rugby correspondent with the Irish Examiner, a well-renowned journalist of his own right. And thank you so much, Simon, for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure, like John and myself, was this a little surprising to you as well that Graham Rowntree was relieved of his duties at Munster yesterday morning?
Absolutely a surprise. Thanks for having me on. 6 games into the season now, they haven't gone well. I think everyone can see that. But like this, it just isn't what the IRFU do with their coaches. Obviously, the IRFU hold all the purse strings with the provinces and have the final say on these matters. So from that point aside, alone, that's the surprise that they've pulled the trigger. Part of me thinks that maybe Rowntree will have had something to do with this decision-making process himself. He sat on Munster's professional game committee. He's aware of all that kind of talk. If there was dissatisfaction with him, I'm sure it would have been addressed to his face as he would address his issues with them. He seems to be a very honest and open fella who wears his heart on his sleeve, and it is a shock that he's gone. What isn't a shock is this is Munster. It's the soap opera that keeps on giving, isn't it? There's always something going on with Munster, and this is just another chapter.
I think why it was so surprising, Munster win the league 2 years ago. They finished top of the league last year. John and I were actually in Thomond Park for the semi-final at the end of last season. The home support, they seem to be back. They seem to be back in the team, back in the coaching group. Dennis Leamy in there, Andy Kiriaki in there, Prendergast in there. I know Costello's now sort of taking over things. But surely in the professional game of rugby, a coach cannot be sacked 6 games in with the amount of injuries that they have. The trip to South Africa, which has been tough. Ulster went over there, didn't get anything out of their 2 games. Munster salvaged the point, didn't they, in the last minute against the Sharks? Is there a feeling that there's been unrest in this group for quite some time, even though they've probably been getting better results over the last 2 seasons than maybe we all think is happening behind closed doors?
Well, I think that's part of it, Steve. That there's always been grumblings and mumblings around Munster. The rumour mill that circulates this province is ridiculous at times. But you will have heard the talk about a falling out last season between Rowntree and Peter Amani over the extended wrangling over a new contract when he came off a central IRFU contract. He did get his contract in the end, but it was very late in the day, as far as we all know. And Rowntree has since said there was never a problem, that it was all part of the usual speculation that swirls around Munster. But that semi-final defeat last year to a very good Glasgow Warriors side, it was kind of coming, that performance, that kind of no-show almost from Munster. They kind of ran out of steam. They did remarkably well to finish top of the table. But they played Ulster on the last day of the season, lost a couple of players to injury that day. They kind of never got out of third gear to see off Ospreys in the quarter-final. And here they'd worked so hard to get this home draw that had eluded several head coaches before Rowntree and himself as well in his previous season. They're finally at home. There's a final awaiting them at Thomond Park, and they blow it against Glasgow. So maybe if you're looking for, in terms of performances, that was the beginning of the end. There's nothing that appears to me to be systemic about their poor performances this season. And as you say, they've had 3 very tough away games that have led to the first time they've lost 3 in a row for 9 years. Leinster at Croke Park, the Stormers in Cape Town, and a Springboks light if you want. Sharks in Durban last Saturday. Very heavy defeats. And I think you can put them down to personal, individual errors almost, rather than a systems failure on any of that. They've blown chance after chance with ball in hand. They've made silly mistakes in defence, and they've been punished by very good teams. I mean, there's not many teams that will win at Leinster, the Stormers or the Sharks in successive weeks. And Munster have done all of those things in the past on an individual basis, but this came at just the wrong time with all those injuries and all the individual lack of form.
Simon, do you think you've kind of touched on it there, given the fixtures they had? Do you think this is a knee-jerk reaction, and do you think this is a rugby decision, or is this, like Stevie alluded to, is this a decision that's been made based on things that are going on off the pitch? Because it's speculation, and social media is great for some things. It also puts a lot of rubbish out there. I'm just keen to get your take on that. Journalists are sometimes a bit the closest to the ground in terms of hearing what the root cause of it is, because it does feel like a loss away to the Sharks. That feels like a tough straw to break the camel's back.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm kind of sense, and we won't hear from Munster until tomorrow when their media do. They're playing the All Blacks, an All Blacks 15 at Thomond Park, a sold-out Thomond Park on Saturday evening. Prestigious fixture, obviously, but they're not doing media because they've just got back from South Africa until tomorrow on Thursday. So we won't be able to get any solid answers if they're coming from Ian Costello, who's the interim head coach. So there has to be a sense that Rowntree was party to this decision because of all those things you've outlined. Because the Sharks and the Stormers, they have won those games in the past in South Africa, but they wouldn't be the pivotal moments that end a coach's career in any club, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah. How do you think his era will be looked back on, reflected on? It's pretty immediate at the moment, but generally looking over the course of his tenure, what do you think the general consensus would be in Munster and Munster fans, media, all of the above?
Yeah, well, going back to social media, it was clear that Rowntree's departure has not been well received in Munster by supporters. He got Munster basically, which isn't a thing that always happens for incoming coaches from outside the province. He understood them, he related to them on an emotional level, and he bought into the whole ethos of Munster. He always kind of comparing it to Leicester Tigers as a sort of club. Obviously, he spent his whole playing career there, and there were lots of parallels he drew from that. And I think his legacy, delivering a URC title, the first bit of silverware to come to Munster since 2011, was no mean feat. Rassie Erasmus couldn't do it. Rob Penny, Johan van Gran, Anthony Foley, they didn't do it, but he did. And that for that reason, that emotional day in Cape Town, emotional night in May 2023 was something that I don't think many people will forget.
Just on that big night, you've obviously experienced many big nights with Munster over the last couple of decades. What's it been like, firstly, covering Munster in the glory days with the likes of Paul O'Connell, O'Gara, Stringer? The class of all those players was just unreal. The aura about Munster, sold out venues week in and week out. has there been a drop off in terms of the level of support for Munster, or do you think it was going in the right direction and then all of a sudden this has happened and it might derail it? So just a little bit on the last 20 years and then obviously where Munster currently find themselves and where they're going to try and get to once more.
Yeah, well, I suppose I started following them full time as a reporter in 2010. So they were just on the cusp of, ceding superiority to Leinster. And that has been the narrative for Munster ever since, really. And unrealistically, probably, because there's not many teams, provinces, clubs that can compete with Leinster in terms of demographics, in terms of a school system supplying, a conveyor belt of talent to the professional setup. But that has been the stick with which they've been beaten on countless occasions and every year since. So, it's always been a roller coaster for Munster. And I think the support has been really strong throughout. There has been times when it has waned somewhat, when there's been maybe 7 or 8 or 10,000 people in Thomond Park, when perhaps on other days there might be 18,000. But the crowds are coming back, and they've continued to come back. Whenever they play in Cork, where I live, they're sold out, 7 or 8,000 in Virgin Media Park. So, the support level is passionate. It knows it's rugby, and they stick with Munster, and they will continue to stick with Munster. However many missteps the management or the administration takes.
Yes, I mean, they're amazingly well supported. It's one of those things I look at a club like that and think, what an amazing club, and how they get back to where they want to be will be a challenge for them. A big part of that is going to be who takes over longer term. Have you heard any rumblings, any rumors that people who are interested? I know it's really soon, but it's easy to look online. Who's available? Is there any talk of that at the moment?
Well, I think that the key is where do they, the recruitment process has apparently started. If you're looking at who's available, unless there's agents sending in CVs as we speak, the obvious one is Felix Jones, a former assistant coach, a former Munster fullback, 90 appearances, even though he played once for Leinster, then 90 times for Munster. So he is a Dubliner, but obviously his coaching pedigree as an assistant is second to none. 2 World Cups with South Africa, joined England, but he's currently under contract still to the RFU, I should say. They're making him see out his 12-month notice, and I'm not sure Munster have the means to buy him out of that. Obviously, he wouldn't be going to a competitor in terms of tests as far as England are concerned, so that might smooth the way if he wants to take it. But Felix, what the small amount I know about him and have dealt with him, he's not one to jump into things lightly. He'll have considered his options, and certainly 12 months working remotely will help you consider your options in some detail. So whether this is the right move for him as a first head coach job, that only he knows that. The others, the romantic one would obviously be Rowan O'Gara, but realistically, he's not going to leave La Rochelle. He's thinking about a long-term project with La Rochelle. There, he's an Irish Examiner columnist as well, so we get to hear more about La Rochelle than Munster some weeks. But he would be the romantic one, but I don't think that's going to happen. So there's also the possibilities of who you can promote within. Ian Costello was at Wasps as a defence coach, Nottingham Rugby head coach. We'll see how he goes in this, but there's 2 very capable assistants at Munster, former Munster players in Dennis Leamy and Mike Prendergast, defence and attack coaches respectively. And I would think, if finances are tight and Munster are being as prudent as I suspect they are, they will look to promote from within. And Prendergast, to me, would seem to have all the credentials. He's the mastermind behind this revamp of the game plan that Rowntree oversaw and encouraged to a more expansive style after Johan van Gran's more stodgy, I suppose, South African style approach that didn't really work for Munster. But Prendergast would be my hunch for this. Again, the assistants, both of them are out of contract at the end of this summer. So I think it's important that they're kept. Now, whether that means dangling the carrot of a head coach role for one of them, that might be part of the bargaining position from Munster. We'll see.
Simon, just a last question from me, just on the employment of coaches. So we've seen Dan McFarland get sacked last year by Ulster. Richie Murphy comes in, but it was very, very much IRFU driven. And yes, Ulster just seemed to toe the line. Do you think Munster Rugby will do the same? It seems that everything has to go to David Humphreys. Everything has to then be, go through IRFU processes, and then they sort of give it the thumbs up. Is it going to be the same again, or do you reckon Munster Rugby will get who they want?
Well, you'd hope Munster would have some sort of a say in it. But you're right, David Humphreys is ultimately the person who decides who gets to coach Munster, as I understand it. And he's been in this situation before with Gloucester and with Ulster, hasn't he? So yes, they did get rid of McFarlane under David Nucifora, Dan McFarlane, I should say. And, but that was in February at the end of a season when it was clear that the wheels had fallen off somewhat at Ulster, wasn't it? But this is 6 games into a season. I would hesitate to agree that this was a knee-jerk reaction, although that's what it seems. I don't think it's based entirely on results. But there's clearly some things that need sorting out at Munster, not least their academy pathways, which have improved of late, and there are some exciting players coming through. It's just being able to deal with these big packs and to get back on that European platform as a heavyweight contender, and you need big players to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thank you so much for coming on. I think there'll be a lot of stories, rumours, and possibly a little bit of the truth coming out of Munster Rugby over the next couple of weeks. So thanks very much. Enjoy the game this weekend against that selected All Blacks 15. And hopefully we'll get you on maybe later in the season if Munster Rugby end up going on to win the bloody thing. So thanks very much, Simon.
Don't rule it out. Thanks, gents.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, John, it's a bit of a pickle down in Munster, isn't it? It's crazy.
I didn't see it coming. I don't know.
No.
I don't think anyone did. You look at whether you use social media as your source of information, which I'm sure a lot of us do, but you look at the sort of the response from ex-players. The current players can't say anything. It's always the same. Your hands are tied. No one's going to come out and say anything until much later down the line. You might read it in someone's book. If Peter Mann does a book, there might be something comes out. But yeah, just everything you thought about him, given the fact that they won the league, they fell off a bit last year. We were at the end of the season last year talking about how they'd gone 9 games in a row. It was 8 bonus point wins in a row. They got a tough start to the season, and then you're thinking, he's gone. It just feels like there's far more to this than we're being told yet. And I think, as you alluded to, some of the truth will come out on this. I'll have to be a bit guarded, and we won't get the full story. But there's a few interesting rumors floating around on WhatsApp groups that we don't have to go into that. But I don't want to be the one that leaks that. But it doesn't feel like this is a rugby decision. This feels like something much bigger.
It does. I was with Ulster back when David Humphreys was in charge there. Obviously, Mark Anscombe was the head coach at the time, and there was a couple of things that happened off the pitch, and straight away there was a bag put on his desk, and his desk was cleared, and he was more or less out of there straight away. So it wasn't a rugby decision. Mark Anscombe was, I think still is, the highest percentage winning coach for Ulster over the last 2 decades. So, it's really interesting that these things happen. But yeah, the game that got Graham Rowntree sacked, or maybe what happened after the game, we'll wait and see. Sharks 41, Munster 24. Just about the Sharks. Etzebeth as captain, Oxenche, Khaleesi at number 8, Grant Williams was electric, Mapimpi, the Kanyuam, Fassi, who was just so good. Yeah, Esterhuizen. My Pimpy looked back to his best. That first try, like Williams break, 45 seconds into the game, just ridiculous. 2 phases and Fassi away he goes, pins the ears back. The second try, the scrum got absolutely hosed as well by Munster. We know there was going to be a few issues there. They're missing props. It's we heard Graham Rowntree last week coming out and actually trying to get more reinforcements to come in and do a job. But yeah, it was just a bit of a nightmare. The kick that Crowley couldn't receive. There was a 3-on-1 with Calvin Nash. He sort of turned his back on the defence, and my Pimpy get in. Scrum destroyed. Esterhuizen, how easy was his score just before halftime? Like, just ran through the Munster defence. And yeah, it was a tough day. The kicking game from Munster, I think, is really sketchy at the minute. They had a lot of possession, a lot of territory Munster had, but they're just missing tackles. They look a little bit soft. Their physicality hasn't been there. Obviously, don't have a huge bench to bring on and make an impact. So really disappointing from them. The only positive really is that they got a losing try bonus point out of it, or try bonus point out of it with 1 point. So yeah, it's a pretty stacked Sharks team, JB, isn't it, when they get going?
As you know, Stevie, the Sharks are my second favourite team to support in the league. Yeah, I watched it. I'm like, where's this been? Do you know, this is the Sharks that we're expecting, even without the guys they brought back in. And I guess the question was, are the guys coming back in gonna make the difference that they should make? And I think it's a resounding yes. I think Oxenjay, if he's not the best loosehead in the world, he's not far off it. His working loose, his physicality, and Etzebeth, Khaleesi, you go through that team and you name some of them, even the lesser known players potentially, if you're talking about international knowledge, you're talking about Aflele Fassi, Chituku,
Hendrickson,
I don't know if it's just these guys have come back in and those guys are then able to just play their game because they've got so much quality around them. Because when I've watched the Sharks, I think a lot of good players, not that interested in defending, not that physical. And you watch them, and Simon talked about it, it's like Springboks light. It's like that is the exact way the Springboks play. They hammer you at the breakdown, they hammer you at scrum time, the physicality, and then they just pick you apart. And that Grant Williams try was 45 seconds in. I mean, you talk about lack of energy from a Munster. I think it was Jean Klein didn't fold, and you're like, 40 seconds into the game here, and it's just, yeah. I think whether Munster overthought it, but yeah, watch out for the Sharks team. Like I've always said.
Yeah, the Sharks were unbelievable, as were Cardiff in the second half against Ulster. Oh my, what happened in this game?
Yeah, talk me through this.
Ridiculous, John.
I was following it, and I'm like, Ulster, we all back Ulster. We thought they're in good form, they're grinding out wins. And then I'm looking at the score, 19 zip at half time. Like, oh, this is gonna be a car crash here. And then it wasn't.
It wasn't. And honestly, I would have bet everything that I owned at halftime. Like, Cardiff were so bad in that first half. They were terrible. I can't remember who got yellow carded for them, but Ulster scored 3 tries during the yellow card. The Ewan Stevens try was class. Come off the back of a penalty. The Maul absolutely disintegrated Ulster's Maul defense in the second half. But like, I know sometimes I'm quite negative about Ulster, especially in defeat, but like, Ulster were really, really good in the first half. Like, they were brilliant. They were their execution, their skills, their kicking game, their defense, their line speed off phase play, smashing the Cardiff boys back. Nathan Doak looked like the guy that we watched play for Ulster 2 years ago when he first burst onto the scene. He interestingly moved to 10. Like, they took Morgan off, who's a Highlanders player, plenty of experience, moved Doki to 10, who has hardly any experience at 10, to try and win a game from 10. Like, it just, I'm not sure if Morgan had an injury. If he did, fair enough. But he looked like, to me, like he walked off okay, and he was standing on the sideline scratching his head for a little bit. And then Cooney come on, and he was supposed to up the pace and up the tempo just for that last 10 minutes to try and get the result. And it didn't happen for them, but it was probably more credit to Cardiff, just the effort they put in. They made a shed load of tackles. Is it McNally, the second row? Josh McNally, I think. Unbelievable, 34 years of age, running around smashing people. And Callum Sheedy, balls of steel to knock over the 2-point conversion, like after that unbelievable maul try. So yeah, hugely disappointing for Ulster, like after such an impressive first half. But fair play to Cardiff, and it's been a good weekend, albeit the Dragons didn't win, but a good weekend for 3 of the 4 Welsh regions to get results. So
I think it's the best weekend for the Welsh regions in 3 years. I read that somewhere. It's the first time in 3 years that 3 Welsh regions have won when it's not Derby going on as well. So
yeah,
yeah,
oh, it was
they're
great.
pretty good. I think on the line-out defense, I don't. Ulster have looked a little bit susceptible to it this year. It's something I don't understand because they, under Dan McFarlane, had a wicked line-out drive, and that was Dan's specialism, and Roddy Grant was in there as well. If you've got a good line-out drive, you tend to have good line-out defence because you're training it. You know the nuances, and there is a bit of art to it rather than science. And I just can't figure it out. Like they've got experience. Maybe they're missing guys or whatever it is, but I think for Ulsters, they're in pretty good shape. I think that's probably going to be the story this season. There might be a few blips along the way. It's not going to be plain sailing, but I think Cardiff really needed that win.
Yeah, I think their maul defence, even like when Stephen Kitsoff or Marty Moore was playing, like I think it was Harlequins, wasn't it? The start of last year in the Champions Cup, where they got hosed by 50 and 3 or 4 maul tries scored against them. So like it's been an issue, John, not just for the last 6 games. It's been an issue for the last 3 seasons, probably. Their maul defence, that is. They've got a good potent maul themselves going forward. But that's something they've got to sort out because they've got Toulouse away next.
Oh God, watch out!
Or no, sorry, it's Leinster home, Toulouse away.
Oh, that's easy then.
Home. Yeah, easy peasy. Well, speaking of Leinster 24 points to 6, they beat the Lions. It was a tough old game. The Lions made it difficult for them, and yeah, the first time, John, that Leinster have not got maximum points out of a game, held to 3 tries by the Lions. So that almost feels like a win in itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, we didn't expect Lions to win, really. I guess the question was, can they challenge them with ball in hand, and they just couldn't. And I think we spoke about also that might be the story of the season. Lions are an exciting team. They're a great team to watch. They're not going to have the level of consistency week in, week out that the very top sides have, and that's just the reality if you look at the squads on paper. But Leinster win. Just looking back at the team here, not far off, full noise. They rested Gibson Park. Like Furlong wasn't playing, but it's still some serious quality in there. Caelan Doris played well. Van der Fleer was there. Yeah, James Lowe was back. It's like, yeah, business as usual for Leinster. But as we know with Leinster TV, it's not what they do at the start of the year. It's what they do at the end.
That's very true. Well, it doesn't matter if Leinster lose again at the end of the season. Leo Cullen will probably get another contract extension. But, I know that's being banded about. I love Leo. I'm only joking. Hopefully we'll get him on. The Lions line-out struggled 70%. Scrum struggled 70%. We hardly seen Edwell van der Merwe or Creel on the wings. They just couldn't get enough width. They were just under the pump. Caelan Doris, now named Irish captain, was ridiculous again, man of the match. But yeah, the Lions are sitting good position, and they're going to be a match for anybody home and away this season, I think. And they're going to look forward to the next couple of rounds of the URC. John, we're going to move quickly on to Glasgow because they've just continued on in the form from last season, haven't it? I know they scraped 2 points last week in South Africa, but to go to the Stormers and play really well, and they just look like a class team at the minute.
Just so organised. It's something I always say with Leinster, like everyone knows what they're doing when you watch Leinster. And the result is, super organised. Everyone's in the right position. Everyone knows exactly with clarity, and they're all connected. I think the same about Glasgow now. I think whether it's in transition or whether it's set piece or it's in their phase play, everyone knows what they're doing. And as a result, you're seeing the best of them. I thought Tui Pelotu was unbelievable again. His break for the disallowed try, I mean, he is going to be a handful all year. Kyle Rowe was class, scored a great try. out the wing. Tom Jordan came on with an amazing 50-22, which gave them the access to score the last try. I just look at them, I think, when the chips are down, they did it in the Bulls away last year. They'd gone to South Africa, come home with 7 points. Not many teams are going to go to South Africa and get 7 points in a 2-week tour. And it's the way they're doing it. Like, they came back against the Bulls to get the 2 losing bonus points. They were losing that game till about 65 minutes. They are incredibly fit. And they keep going and keep going and they keep going. They stick to their guns. And that's what we talk about all the time. What's the DNA of this team? And I think you look at Glasgow and you know exactly who they are. I think they've made a wicked start to the season.
Early shout, John Sione to Pilatu World Player of the Year. Like, he's playing that well at the minute. At the end of the season, if he goes well in the Champions Cup, like, why not?
I got goosebumps, Stevie, when you said that. It's the nicest thing you've ever said about a Scottish player. I think he's been named captain as well, and I've been asked a lot about this year. Like, some people are quite surprised by it, but you might have seen a bit. I see a bit more in and around Glasgow pre-games, and I just see he's in the middle of everything. Whether it's off the pitch, he's like a ball of energy. He is desperate to have more responsibility, to improve. And even when he wasn't captain, you watch him on the pitch, everything good that Glasgow do goes through him. Defense, everything's around him, and that's not coincidence. That's his communication, is the way he plays the game. Yeah, I mean, I think if he carries on his form in the league into the Autumn Nations and into the Six Nations, I think he is 100%. He's in with a shout for Six Nations and also for the Leinster, and that's why he is our URC Player of the Round for round 6, the only person to win it twice so far. So that tells you a lot about what we need to know about Sione.
Yeah, he's playing absolutely ridiculous rugby at the minute, and even when he's not like running through people or smoking poison D, he always seems to have his hands on the ball before or after, like the moments that happen. Like, he's just the delay and pass, the just the time and space that he has on the ball, or that he gives himself on the ball. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him this season. And yeah, can't wait to see more of him during the autumn internationals. Osprey, John, this is one. Ospreys 22, Edinburgh 13. Edinburgh back with a bang last week after getting hammered the previous 2 weeks. We thought things had sort of turned around. They were on the up, plenty of confidence out of that game, and then all of a sudden they go to the Ospreys. Let's face it, it wasn't a particularly great game. Lots of mistakes and errors from both sides, but surely Edinburgh should have put up a bit more of a fight than what they showed there at the weekend.
It was a terrible game. It was rubbish. Two teams that are struggling, if you look at it, really. And Edinburgh put out a really strong side again on paper and got beaten up. All the tries came from close quarters, but it was a discipline that put them in those positions. And you just think, really? Are we back here? Are we back here? So I don't really know what to say about where Edinburgh are at the moment. It's just not working for the moment. That was only Osprey's second win of the season. There wasn't a whole lot of rugby played. It came to life in the last 5 minutes. Bizarre, it was played. The game went about 90 minutes long, but it's I mean, it's like a broken record with Edinburgh. You don't know who they are at the moment, and they've got to get hold of it, because we've said that for a number of weeks now. We're 6 weeks in now, and they're sitting in 10th, 2 wins. It's not good. Not good enough, and I think that we will be pretty concerned about how that's developing, or certainly keeping a very close eye on it.
Totally agree. We don't have Shanks to big up the Ospreys, but he did say last week that he did fancy the Ospreys to get the result. They welcomed back a couple of guys into their team. They were pretty dire in Belfast the week before against Ulster and didn't show anything whatsoever, but they did add a little bit more bulk to their side. If they're playing at St Helens next year, is that right? And it's a couple of games at the Brewery Field this year. They're moving around a little bit, so that will be sticky for opposition having to go to those smaller grounds. And the Ospreys will sort of get used to it as the season goes on. But fair play to the Ospreys. They ground out a 22-13 win over Edinburgh. And Connacht, who needed a win, got one, a resounding one. 31 points to 7 over the Dragons. They were exceptional, John. Honestly, played some class rugby. Shane Bolton, I know he went off injured, set up the second try, it was Paul Boyle get over for the first one, and that's another player who's coming back into form. Only one cap for Ireland, and then he sort of went off the radar. Cian Prendergast, he ran through Rio Dyer in the far side in the pitch, just literally steamrolled him. And then I think it was Dean Blacker, was it, the scrum half? He absolutely steamrolled him as well. So, they were like really, really sharp. Skills were good. Offloads went to hand. Bundy Yaki had a few good involvements. All their players stepped up. Matthew Devine came off the bench, set up the Tom Ford try, Cal Ford try, and scored one himself with an intercept. So, like Ben Murphy, scrum half, Keelan Blade at scrum half, and Matthew Devine at scrum half. Genuinely, that guy, young fella Matthew Devine, who come on, looked ridiculous, powerful, sharp, electric around the breakdown, half decent pass, not scared to go up and make decisions. I think the commentary team were saying that he's full of confidence. He's just this guy has loads and loads of confidence. Gavin Duffy was on comms, who was brilliant, by the way. So, they're in a much better place. And we've talked about this Connacht side, John, leaking tries and like being too easy to play against, and ship a shitload of points. They only conceded in the 77th minute a Tane Basham try. So, that's a huge thing for them to be proud of, is how much effort that went into defending as well as getting a few scores on the board.
Yeah, totally. I watched it and I was like, is this a banana skin? I saw the fiction. I thought, is this a game where Connacht are going to struggle? And it wasn't. It was what you would expect given the team they've got. I just think it's not often we've seen Bundy play, regularly for Connacht, and he makes a big difference to that team. They've got quality in and around him, but they are a different team when he plays. Cat Ford plays better when he's around. So, yeah. Same story with Connacht, though. It's like start of the season, saw it last year, the year before, strong start of the season. Similar this year, 3 wins out of the 6. But yeah, it's a team I like watching. They play good brand of rugby. I do think when they come up against the big, powerful sides, let's see where their defence is at. And that's what we've lacked, or we haven't seen from Connacht in, consistently over the last 18 months.
Yeah, I probably agree with you. And another team that I think is on a similar sort of trajectory is the Scarlets. They've sorted themselves out. Got a couple of good results. 30 points to 8. They beat Zebre at home. We all were in agreement that they were going to beat Zebre. They scored a couple of cracking tries. We know that they love to play a lovely brand of rugby, but that's very difficult to do against the really top quality sides. But you must be happy for Dwayne Peel to keep backing up the performances, John.
Yeah, man. Tough start to the season with a couple of narrow losses, a draw away. You're thinking, is this going to get away from the season? It just shows you what a win can do. And then a couple of wins, playing with confidence. Their top players are backing up performances. They're still missing Fafita, who will make a big difference. But like Josh McLeod's playing well, the scrum's holding up pretty well. Lineup's okay. That Max Page try was crazy, like crazy good.
Crazy.
Eddie James was a great line, who I think he's got to play for Wales.
Do you reckon he's going to start it? Do you reckon he's going to start at 12?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of talk. Well, Ben Thomas, Gat said that Ben Thomas is the best back in Wales.
Yeah.
I think he wanted.
I don't see it.
We got asked about it on Monday at the launch. And I said I don't agree. He's playing well, but I think you have to play Eddie James. If you play Eddie James, I think you have to play Johnny Williams, because you're not going to play these teams with 2 lighter weights. I think Johnny Williams has been brilliant as well. So, yeah, I just think for Scarlets, you just felt for them over the last year or so, and you felt for Dwayne Peel, and they were doing so much. Discipline was killing them. Loads of yellow cards, red cards. They've managed to hold on to players, and you just kind of hope, they're not going to go on and win the league. You hope they continually improve. The young players are coming through, putting their hand up, and just a bit more bravado, a bit more confidence about how they're trying to play. So yeah, I was really happy for the Scarlets the weekend.
Yeah, likewise. I felt sorry for Benetton this week, losing out the 77th minute or 78th minute of the game. Listen, there wasn't much to talk about during the match. The weather conditions, again, were terrible for Benetton. They managed the game pretty well for the most part. Menincello and was it Brex in the centres were brilliant. Canone in the second row was awesome.
Albornoz makes a difference at 10 for them.
Yeah, he does. But it was a Menoncello penalty on like the 75th minute, where there was like Benetton just had them on the halfway line, and even for the try before that, the Bulls scored again, they had them pinned down in their own half, give away a stupid penalty, and the Bulls worked their way up. But the Bulls were able to bring on a couple of lumps off the bench after that Menoncello penalty. The kick to the corner, brilliant kick. Akker van der Merwe, maul try. David Creel sends the ball between the posts to break their hearts. I thought that Benetton had played well enough to win the game, but it just shows against quality sides like the Bulls or Leinster or a fully loaded Sharks, you cannot switch off. And the referee just pinged Menoncello, and that decision ultimately cost them the game in the end. But very competitive, brilliant to see. Benetton still going to give a lot of teams a hard game, John, at their home venue, especially when the weather picks up. Well, does it ever pick up? Well over there in Italy, but so we'll see how they get on. Any rants, John? We'll just finish up on the recaps of the rugby. Any rants this week? Was there anybody annoyed you? Shanks on the boat in Dubai, putting up pictures on his Instagram. Anything you disagree with or annoy you this week? Or are you happy?
No, I'm happy. I'm genuinely happy. I played golf today. Played very well. Thanks for asking.
Where did you play?
Played at Glen Eagles. It was work golf as well, which is the best. Played the PGA. We played 11 holes. Lovely. It was good. The new irons are working lovely. Yeah, I just wish all the rest of the pundits were as dedicated as I am to URC Unloaded. That's not right. But it's more just I'm just kind of I'm just disappointed. Yeah, but that's it. Nothing major for me.
Very good. Yeah, I just have a rant that, like, I know it's been said before, airport security, like Bristol Airport was. I walked up to the end of the queue got there, and then this guy goes, "Yeah, in here, please, sir." I was like, "Great." And then he started shouting at me, "No, in number two."
Oh, don't stop.
All right. And I was like, "There's a free space at number 3, but I just go in here." No, you listen to me. So I stood at number 2, but like I was like a foot outside of 6 inches outside of the line, and I know this is no word of a lie. He bumped me, like shouldered me in the lane 2, right? And of course, I then went, "Oh, hold on a second. You don't you dare put your hands on me. You put your hands on me again, I'm going to knock you out." And all like so people started turning around, right? But this guy was like Polish, 6'3", 4", like he had a massive derby on him, but like you could tell he was a bit spiky, like, he had a bit about him. So we had a bit of a standoff with each other, and then I did the terrible thing of going and getting his manager.
Yes, get the bloody manager, Steve.
Why would the manager out? Yeah, well, the thing was, John, when I asked for the manager and they sent out this 16-year-old kid.
I was going to say they sent the same guy. That's the best thing. Turn around to the same guy. Stevie, I would say it's early in the season for that kind of behaviour. Normally you get to June and you're a bit pissed off and you've been in a lot of airports.
Man, that was shocking today, or on Saturday or Sunday. It was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. And by the way, I walked around Bristol Airport for 20 minutes and there wasn't one seat available in the whole airport. Like,
it's one of the worst airports going, apart from Cardiff. It's up there with the worst.
It's crazy. Anyway, something that's not going to be crazy. Well, it might be crazy. Autumn internationals, John. You're going to be working a few of them. You're going to be doing a lot of corporate stuff, making a lot of cash money. So, how do you see it all going? New Zealand. I tell you what, I know Scotland aren't playing New Zealand, but New Zealand have got some tough games. England, Ireland, France. They're going to be tough. But just a quick one on Scotland's 4 that they have: Fiji, South Africa, Portugal, and Australia. How do you find it's going to go for Scotland?
They've got to win 3. They have to win 3. And like them or lump them, the world rankings are there to give you a guide. And Fiji, Australia, Portugal are below them. You look at Scotland, I think, and they've got a settled team. They've got a settled coaching staff. And it's the same conversation every year, saying how they're going to take the next step. And we're talking about Six Nations really when we talk about that. But this is an important set of games to set them up for that. So I expect them to beat Fiji well. I expect them to beat Portugal well. I think they'll put Australia away pretty well as well. I think South Africa's going to be a big old challenge. So, yeah, I don't know. I think if they can pull off a win against South Africa, isn't that Gregor Townsend's biggest win? Probably, given how good South Africa are. Double world champs, won the rugby championship. Their players are tearing up in the URC. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see Finn back playing for Scotland. I'm excited to see Sione, see how he goes. I'm excited to see if Tom Jordan gets a game at 10 and see what impact he can have, because he has been so good for Glasgow for the last 6 months. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really genuinely buzzing to go back, see what they're up to. 9 selection. Who's going to play 9? Maybe the only one that's maybe up in the air, but yeah, it's going to be good, Steve.
What's the story, John, with Johnny Matthews?
Yeah, there's a couple of people confused by that. I've got to admit, I was a bit confused by that. You look at Ewan Ashman's going to go 100, as in he's going to be in that squad. Dylan Richardson, who's got a couple of caps, plays for the Sharks. He's a big, robust, dynamic hooker. And then Paddy Harrison, who's probably been one of Edinburgh's best players in a team that's struggling.
Yeah,
I think he's in that because of the recognition that he's maybe the next cab off the rank. I think the tough thing for Johnny is that he's playing well, and everyone's he scored so many tries. That's not your main job as a hooker. That is that's job Z. You know, that's the last thing you're thinking about. And you look at I think the physical profile of the best hookers in the world. You look at Malcolm Marks, Mbonambi, Cody Taylor, the French hooker. They're all massive. Yeah. The physical presence and the physicality they bring is why they're picked, and I think that's probably why Ashman and Dylan Richardson are there and Johnny's not. So it feels quite harsh because he could have easily been in there and no one would have batted an eyelid. But that's Gregor Townsend.
Yeah, that's Gregor Townsend. Wales have got Fiji, Australia, South Africa. If anybody's looking to a bit of hospitality around those games, you obviously have Tom Shanklin's locker room. I know Shanks, you'll be loving that. The plug, as cheap as chips, free drink all day. It's actually really good, really, really good. And you'll probably be knocking around with him. Are Scotland home or away to Wales in the Six Nations next year, John?
Home. Shanks is doing it up here. He's bringing the locker room to Scotland.
Is he bringing it to? Oh, class. That'll be good. That'll be very, very good. But you would expect Wales to beat Fiji, Australia. God knows what Joe Smith's going to have up the sleeve, and South Africa. If they lost all 3, geez, there'd be some amount of pressure on Warren Gatland, wouldn't there? But you would expect them to get a result or two. Italy have got Argentina, Georgia, New Zealand. England's New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Japan. That's going to be tough. They're this weekend against New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah, game one is
game one.
It's it's a tough old ask.
Yeah, and that's what I sort of worry a little bit for Ireland the following week, because obviously Ireland's first game of their series is New Zealand, but New Zealand will already have had one battle hardened against England. For them, if they get the right result as well, it'll give them a hell of a lot of confidence to go into the Ireland game. Ireland got New Zealand, Argentina, Fiji, Australia. You would expect them to beat Argentina, Fiji, and Australia 9 times out of 10 for sure. So
I'll tell you that New Zealand game is going to be pretty spicy. Obviously, with the Johnny Sexton, Rico Ioane stuff, it's going to be. There's a bit of ill feeling towards those two teams. That's going to be a hell of a game. Anyone you're thinking might get an opportunity in that Ireland team? You're looking at any guys that are on the fringe?
Yeah, like I thought Cormac, with Peter O'Mahony not playing rugby over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, being out injured, continuing his rehab. Like, so you have Keelan Doris, you have Josh van der Fleer, and then who do you play at 6? Is it Ryan Baird? Is it Cormac Ezechukwu? Is it Keane Prendergast? Jack Conan's out injured as well.
Is he?
So
I've missed that.
Yeah. I'm nearly sure he's not in the squad. I'm nearly sure. He picked up an injury against Munster, didn't he? There a couple of weeks ago, had to go off injured. So maybe Ben can send me a message there about that. But yeah, so like just to go back to your question, I thought Cormac Isachukwu would be definitely in with a shout of maybe starting a game against Argentina or Australia, possibly. And then Cian Prendergast played brilliant, really good. Like, I know it's different opposition, I know it's the Dragons, but he was extremely good. So apart from that, John, I'm not so sure. I think Ireland are a really settled squad. Like, Henshaw played at the weekend there. Will he get in ahead of Bundyaki? Probably not. You're probably looking at the 9-10. The whole backline exactly the same. Dan Sheehan's obviously going to be missing, so Ronan Keller will step in there, no problem. That's fine. Second rows, fine, 100%. Back rows, you're maybe missing one guy. So, yeah, it's going to be same as it has been, I think. But yeah, just lastly, France, they've obviously got their tour as well. Japan, New Zealand, and Argentina. You're looking forward to seeing the little maestro back again, JB?
Yeah, it's a little bit of an underwhelming series now for France, with all due respect to Japan. Argentina will be a challenge. I suppose that some of the games between France and New Zealand at the Stade de France the last couple of years have been epic. So that'll be a pretty impressive game to watch. But yeah, Antoine Dupont back in France jersey. He's just tearing it up in France, playing the top 14. So yeah, mate, there's a hell of a lot of rugby, and there's a hell of a lot of good rugby I'm sure we're going to see. I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. John, enjoy earning lots and lots of cash over the next couple of weeks. I'll hopefully bump into you. Best luck, all the punditry, and we'll catch up after the Autumn Nation Series. We'll be back with another episode of URC Unloaded. So take it easy from John, myself, and Shanks, who's in Dubai, locked up. We'll see you next time.